Hi, Chris Gunn here, Communications Director for the American Small Business League, and I'm actually here to talk to you today about H.R. 3558, the Small Business Fair Competition Act of 2009, a bill that was introduced last week by Congressman Parker Griffith from the 5th District of Alabama. We have some pretty major concerns about this bill and its ability to create a gigantic loophole for Fortune 500 corporations and their subsidiaries to receive federal small business contracts. Regardless of the intent of this bill, we think that this is a bad bill. This is a bill that's opening more loopholes and actually exposing small businesses and small business programs to more abuses, and the types of abuses that we're actually trying to eliminate right now. And actually for the last 7 years, we've been trying to eliminate this type of abuse. As I mentioned, for 7 years, we have been working to stop a problem that we've called the diversion of federal small business contracts to large corporations, or in other words, Fortune 500 corporations, Fortune 1000 corporations, and other large businesses and their subsidiaries who are actually competing for and winning small business contracts, and then having those contracts counted towards the federal government's 23% small business procurement goal. Every year, we've estimated that about $100 billion in small business contracts are actually diverted away from the middle class economy and our nation's small businesses and put into the hands of these Fortune 500 corporations. And it's a problem that we think actually could have been a contributing factor to our current recession. The economic downturn was undoubtedly affected by the diversion of $100 billion a year out of the middle class economy and away from our nation's chief job creators. We've all seen it. Small businesses are, in fact, the backbone of our nation's economy. We've heard our presidents say it, and we've seen statistics that support it. Small businesses are actually responsible for, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, 97% of net new jobs, 50% of the gross domestic product, over 50% of private sector non-farm workforce. And so we're seeing a gigantic impact on the part of small businesses on our nation's economy, and it only makes sense to put those dollars back into the hands of small businesses across the country. And we're talking about every industry, actually. We're not just talking about weapons suppliers or people that are servicing government buildings. We're talking about anybody who can supply a product or a service to the government, whether that be paper products or educational services for our soldiers. So again, H.R. 3558 is a bill that we've come out and opposed. The bill will create a loophole in federal small business contracting programs that will allow Fortune 500 corporations, Fortune 1000 corporations, and their subsidiaries to continue to receive federal small business contracts indefinitely. And we encourage you to oppose it. We've actually launched a national campaign reaching out to chambers of commerce and small business owners like yourself, and actually asking you to reach out to your elected officials and let them know that you're against this bill, that you don't support the notion of pulling money out of our middle class and taking money away from our nation's employers, our choice employers, its small businesses. And finally, I wanted to touch on something that I think definitely relates to this issue, and that's actually the government's numbers from last year, just to illustrate our point a little bit and give you an idea of how broad and how large the loopholes are right now. During 2008, we saw an incredible volume of small business contracts going to big companies. We actually conducted an analysis of the top 100 recipients of small business contracts for FY 2008, and we found that of the top 100, 60 of those companies were large and very, very large companies. Say, for example, Textron. Textron is a Fortune 500 corporation. They have 43,000 employees, and they make about $14 billion, or rather, they were listed for about $14 billion in annual revenue. So that said, they are just one example of the many, many large companies, say for example Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, who are receiving federal small business contracts on a yearly basis. And yet we continually see bills introduced that are working to further expand that problem as opposed to contract it and get rid of it. So again, my name is Chris Gunn. I'm the Communications Director for the American Small Business League, and I encourage you to speak out against H.R. 3558 and join us in our fight to stop the diversion of federal small business contracts to large corporations.